If you're worried about the reality of the reefs, you should find it refreshing that I've got a weird sciencey fact that boggles my mind. Climate change is already producing conditions that are catastrophic for ecosystems all around the world.
But few ecosystems have been hit quite as hard as the coral reefs.
From Miami to Melbourne, increased temperatures, rising sea levels, and ocean acidification have killed off 98% of the world's living coral. And coral is one of the most important parts of our global ecosystem. If the coral goes, lots of other things go with it. Sadly, the only way to stop killing off our coral is to stop climate change. Something we haven't exactly had the greatest track record on addressing. But with every record-setting summer, humanity is taking this existential threat slightly more seriously. Which means if the reefs can hold on, there is some hope. But with only 2% of the world's living coral left clinging to existence, holding on is harder than it sounds. But there's some amazing conservationalists, marine biologists, and just plain old volunteers doing everything they can to lend a helping hand. And to figure out what hands help the best. On the low-tech side, they found that a little bit of gardening goes a long way. And if you want your garden to be healthy, you're going to have to do some weeding. Seaweeding, specifically, in this case. See, coral ecosystems are delicate, and changes in their environment can affect them dramatically. So if a reef goes through a period of high stress and starts to recede, seaweed is quick to take its place. And once the seaweed starts growing, the coral can't, because the seaweed outcompetes it for sunlight and resources. But scuba diving and snorkeling volunteers doing some underwater weeding have been helping with that problem. And from 2018 to 2021, the reefs that received the weeding grew from 34 square meters to 203 square meters, where unweeded reefs did not have any notable growth. That's huge, but it also requires a lot of manpower and a lot of volunteer hours. And trying to coordinate all of that can make somebody crabby, but it turns out being crabby just might be the solution. Closer to home, Caribbean king crab nurseries are working hard to grow armies of crabby critters who can take a bite out of the problem. Quite literally. Kind of like that one hippie friend you have, Caribbean king crabs love eating seaweed. So releasing them onto the reefs to be automatic mowers is an excellent and natural solution to solving that issue. But reefs are complex living organisms, which means they've got complex problems, and just ridding the reefs of seaweed isn't going to be enough. As reefs get stressed and start to die, they pull a Michael Jackson and go through a process called bleaching. The primary cause of this is increased temperatures, which again, we can't fix unless we fix the whole, annual record-setting temperature thing. But excess exposure to sunlight speeds up the process as well, and there we may be able to lend a helping hand. While millions of beach umbrellas was a bit impractical to solve this problem, taking their cues from a Pink Floyd concert, fog machines may be a solid solution. Studies have shown that covering reefs in man-made fog for just a few of the hottest hours of the day can help reefs withstand bleaching level heat for 3 additional weeks. And that can be just enough time to get them through a heat snap to survive another season. One of the breakthroughs that might help coral catch the biggest break happened by accident when something got broke. I'm sure you've heard about how fragile coral can be. It grows slow and it breaks easy, so even just bumping up against it can cause you to break off pieces of coral that took decades to grow. David Vaughan of the Summerland Key nonprofit Plant a Million Corals was growing some coral one day, and he was taking some of the branching coral out of a tank to transfer it to another tank when he broke off some shards. He assumed the coral polyps would die, but when he checked on them a couple weeks later, they had actually multiplied. See, large coral grows slowly because building that calcium exoskeleton takes a lot of energy and time. But young coral grows pretty fast. And thanks to this accidental discovery, they found that if they take these micro fragments of coral, they can do something called reskinning. Reskinning is where they take these micro fragments and affix them to dead coral reefs. The skeletons of these dead coral reefs provide the perfect foundation for these micro fragments of coral to take root and grow quickly. Up until now, the practice was to grow mature coral in captivity and then transplant that mature coral onto dying or extinct reefs. However, that's an incredibly slow process to get started and an even slower process once it's transplanted. But replacing the process with these microfragments actually caused the coral reefs to produce tissue 10 times faster than the traditional method. And this reskinning process has created functional reef ecosystems in a fraction of the time. Reefs that can spawn within 5 years and have now withstood hurricanes, disease, and bleaching. This is quite possibly the biggest breakthrough in reef conservation history. This could possibly be the biggest breakthrough in helping reefs from going extinct while we get our shit together on figuring out this climate change thing. And the fact that weed removal, reflecting rays, and reskinning may provide the refreshing, rejuvenating refuge reefs require to rebuild, well, that is pretty mind-boggling.